All right, team, what's up? Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the PT on Ice Daily Show. Great to have you here. I am Dr. Jeff Moore, currently serving as a CEO of ICE. Always thrilled to be here on a combination of what is Leadership Thursday and Gut Check Thursday. Let's jump right into the workout before we chat about choosing your hard PT edition. The workout this week looks spicy. We've got 4 rounds for time, 20 handstand push-ups, 30 strict ab mat sit-ups. Okay, so we're not going to be swinging the arms like crazy. We're going to be keeping the fingers pointed towards the ab mat, rocking those 30 sit-ups. Then you've got 50-foot walking lunges, double kettlebell front rack hold, 53-35. That's all going to hurt, every part of that. And you've got 4 rounds for time. So it's just you against the clock. Let us know. Tag us in the video. Love to see those workouts. I see Alan busting my chops here. He was telling me I was going to have to scale this one, so I will give it an absolute best go to see if I can't knock this thing out RX, regardless of how long it might take. All right, chatting about a few upcoming courses, tons of live ones firing off every weekend. Want to highlight a couple divisions. Dry needling is back live. So many of you know that Paul and his wife had their first kiddo. So we had a little bit of a hiatus in the dry needling division. We are kicking back off in Richmond, Virginia, February 11, 12. That'll be lower body. And then Cincinnati, February 25, 26, that'll be upper body. I'll actually be at that one. I can't wait to see the show. If you want to knock out lower and upper body in 1 month, you certainly could do so by combining Richmond and Cincinnati. Then we've got pregnancy and postpartum live, the course that I just went to last weekend. That was phenomenal. I got to see Alexis and April deliver that course in Chicago. Talk about learning everything you'd ever want to know about all things pelvic health and the female athlete. Day 1 was in the clinic, all of the exam key information. Day 2 was in the gym, all the return to actual functional fitness. Just a jam-packed couple of days to help level up the female athlete. They will be in Houston, Texas, in Woodlands, just north of Houston, February 18, 19, and then in Rochester, New York, March 18, 19. That's with our buddies at Limitless. Always a blast to be in Northern New York. So dry needling, pregnancy, postpartum live, firing off over the next couple of months. Let's get into the topic. So today we are going to chat about choosing your hard PT edition. So let's just admit out of the gates that it's tough, right? Because idleness or leisure is always tempting, right? Energy conservation is natural, likely from a day when we actually had to survive day to day. So when you were safe, when you did have adequate sustenance, when you could throttle back, that was rewarding. Right. So energy conservation always kind of has that draw. I don't think many of us are now in that day-to-day struggle to actually physically survive. Certainly not those folks taking in this podcast on their iPhone via Spotify in leisure time. Probably not the environment for most of us. So it's a day gone by, but it's likely still a day that hangs around in that DNA, in that wiring. Energy conservation is always a little bit tempting. And at the same time, hustling or grinding has gotten villainized lately over the past number of years, right? This idea of hustle culture does not have in many circles a real positive connotation. So this fact that kind of naturally you're drawn to wanting to be idle, wanting to enjoy leisure. And number 2, there is some negative stigma around the idea of quote unquote working too much or going too hard. Those things together can just make the idea of searching for an easier route really, really tempting. What I want to come on here and say very straightforward is for most of us, there is no escape. That is not an option for the vast majority of us. Yes, there are some people that are dealing with a different deck of cards who have a lot of family money, who are sort of gifted life. And I'm telling you right now, they've got their own issues and oftentimes are bigger than these issues. But there are some of those select folks. I don't know a ton of those people. I don't think a ton of those folks are here on the show. Most of us have to get up every day and get after it. If we're going to provide, or if we're going to move from just providing to being whatever it is that you might consider successful, whatever allocation of resources that might be, you have to get up and often do some things that are challenging, some things that maybe aren't the easiest choice. That's just a reality. And that is the first thing that we have to embrace. We are going to have to do some hard stuff if we're going to accomplish the things that we want to in life. Now, the question then, if we can get our heads around that, if we can get rid of that temptation of idleness, accept the fact that we're going to have to do hard things in some capacity, now we can have a really productive question about what are those things? What should those things be? And that is a really valid question. It might be the single most important question on a day-to-day basis that you face. When you look at your trajectory, when you look at your overall satisfaction with your life, when you reflect, how you make this decision is everything. So let's play a little bit of this or that. I've got a few domains that I think that you're going to face on the regular, things that we consider hard, but things that I would consider harder. Maybe not physically, but psychologically. Certainly in the long run, if you play it out, I don't think you'll be as happy with the decision. Okay, number one, let's talk about selling. Selling is hard. Selling is really hard. It's simply challenging. The mechanics of it, understanding human psychology, being able to get somebody from awareness of your product to conversion of sale, that I'm going to allocate my resources in that direction. It's just flat out challenging. It's uncomfortable. A lot of physical therapists especially don't like to be pushy. We don't like to feel like salespeople. We didn't go into sales, right? That wasn't what we thought we were getting into this for. It is uncomfortable. It oftentimes feels like a spot that we don't want to be. It's certainly novel. You likely haven't had a ton of sales training. I mean, if you went from undergraduate into graduate school, into the clinic and healthcare, at no point did you have really, really rock solid sales training where you got a bunch of reps and you tried different methods and you got feedback on that. That probably never happened. So sales is challenging. It is uncomfortable. It is likely novel. But I tell you what, seeing 4 patients an hour because you have to take whatever patients and whatever reimbursement somebody else will give you because you can't sell your product to the masses, that's harder. Sales is hard. I'll give it to you, but that's harder, right? When you have to accept what you know is unacceptable and maybe even unethical reimbursement because you don't have a choice, because you can't convince those people that if something isn't a covered service, they should pay out of pocket. You can't convince those people that if some random person for their cost-saving strategy believes that what you are going to do with that patient is medically unnecessary and they cut off the lifeline, you can't convince that person to keep coming. They haven't bought in enough. They don't value it enough. You haven't made the sale. Living that life where you have to see a ton of people an hour at a horrible reimbursement rate and people won't do the things that actually would change their life if they would listen to where you're coming from and absorb that knowledge and make that behavior change, do that long term, that's way harder. Selling is hard. That life is harder. Number 2, getting good is hard. Getting excellent at your craft is always challenging. In the physical therapy world, taking a ton of con ed is hard. It's one of the things we say at our courses all the time. We're so proud of you all for being here. Like, this is hard. I mean, leaving work on Friday and trying to, get to the airport and get to a course that maybe isn't in your area. It's not convenient. It's the one that you need. So you take the energy to get there and spend all weekend and work hard and get feedback. That's tough. When you go home from that course, getting reps, carving out time, grabbing your buddy, showing them, spending a half hour a week going over some of those high dollar techniques, being challenging on each other. Hey, that could have been better. That thumb was a little bit pokey. Try to soften that hand up a little bit. That's challenging. It's hard. Getting those reps is tough. Reviewing your own cases, filming your own evals. Who wants to watch the game film? That is brutal, right? Watching yourself do an eval and be like, what were you doing there? Like, there are probably that one of the cringiest thing in my career I've ever done is when I was going through fellowship, watching a ton of my own evals. It's just like, you can barely watch. Like, dude, why did you make that decision? Right? Or why did you skip that step? Or how did you miss that? Right? It's tough on the ego. This is all hard. Traveling for Con Ed is hard, right? It's so much easier just to grab some random subscription model where you can meet your CEUs and relicense. That's the easy route. Going and finding the courses you believe are valuable and paying for them and carving out time, it's hard. Carving out reps after class is hard. Going over cases is hard. Watching game film is hard. It's all hard. But you know what's harder? Getting mediocre outcomes every day. I don't know a worse job than being a physical therapist who gets mediocre outcomes. How long of a day is it when every patient's coming in saying, I don't know if I'm getting better? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I did the stuff you showed me. I don't think it's really helping. Honestly, I had a horrible day yesterday, and now you're digging out of this hole. Every one of you just felt that emotional decline because you've all been there. When that patient rolls in, they're not getting better. They don't know if they should keep coming. They're not bought into the process. What a grind that day is. Being mediocre, getting mediocre outcomes in your patient knowing it is the worst kind of hard. How opposite is that of your patient coming in and saying, I got to tell you, I can't believe this. I've only been here for a couple weeks. My headaches are down 90%. I've re-picked up my workload at school that I thought I was going to have to drop out of. This is really changing my life. How's that for an initial encounter? How's that 7 or 8 times during the day? You think that won't fill your bucket? Team, getting good is hard. I'll give it to you. But getting mediocre outcomes is way harder. Walking around the clinic all day, not really sure where you're heading, not sure what to do next, not sure how to explain it to the patient, having to listen to that emotional baggage all day, every day. Team, it's harder. It's harder. Getting good is hard. Being mediocre is harder. Number 3, being about it is hard. Being about it is hard. Paying the rent every damn day. Now, don't get me wrong. As you build the habit, it gets less hard. As you get a great crew around you who you compete with and give each other a hard time, get some of that competitive flair. When you build your ecosystem, when you build your habit, it becomes more natural. But we're kidding ourselves if we say that on really busy days or days where things aren't going right, where the schedule's getting all jacked up, getting it in, making sure you pay that rent every single damn day because that's what you do, that commitment is hard. But you know what's harder? Being exhausted every day after lunch, dragging yourself through the afternoon, having that lingering headache that you can't seem to shake, knowing you're not giving your patient at 3 o'clock your absolute best because you just don't have it in you. Limping to the finish line every single day because your physical capacity just hasn't been developed and you can't make it. You just can't give your best for 9 hours. You don't have it in you. You know what else is harder? People not following your example because you're not setting it. When we say people don't need more education, they need more inspiration, we mean you've got to lead from the front. So when you say this is a better way to live, I'm telling you, Joanne, I'm telling you, give me a shake, give me a month of this. You're going to feel it. You're going to see it. Your life's going to be different. By different, I mean better. Get after it. They've got to look at you and say, I want that person's energy, right? Why are they never tired? Why are they always up? Because they're doing the work. They're being about it. Yes, it's hard, but the alternative is harder. And you got to do one of them. So why not take the former? Okay, number 4, I got a million of these, but number 4, building teams is hard. I'm speaking from experience. It's challenging. Humans are complex. Making sure everybody gets a win at every turn, bilateral wins, those are elusive. Building teams is dynamic. It is challenging. But you know what really sucks? Going solo. Having no one to bounce ideas off of, having nobody who has a strength where you have a weakness so that together you're better, having nobody that can fill that gap, having no one to laugh with all day. One of the best parts of having a crew is just the social environment of it. Of course, building teams is hard. Keeping them together is harder. But gosh, it crushes the alternative. How many times on this podcast do I have to say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. If you want to do something that's truly transformative for society, you got to have a squad. You got to have people that can pick somebody up when they fall down. You got to have people who have a strength where somebody else has a weakness, and you got to have camaraderie because we are pack animals, and that social vibe is what keeps the mood up. That's infectious to other people who come into your ecosystem. Of course, building a team is hard. But man, going solo is so much harder. Team, first, I'm trying to convince you to stop avoiding the hard. Stop pretending that there is a not hard option. For most of us, there's not an easy button. You are either going to get the hero or the villain up there. You are either going to learn to sell or you're going to take whatever scraps people might throw your way. You are either going to get really good and be re-energized by your patient success stories on the hour, every hour, all day, or you're going to have to try and convince them to keep coming even though they don't really see the value. You're going to have to live with being mediocre. You are either going to be about it and be energized all day and be able to set an example that other people find to be inspiring that transforms their behavior, or you're going to be exhausted after lunch, dragging yourself through every day and just trying to make it to the bell, inspiring nobody along the way. You're either going to have the hard conversations, do the small things that are required to build a team and sustain a team, or you're going to fly solo and learn from nobody and do nothing together and not have the elevation and the camaraderie. You got to do one or the other of those things. Stop trying to avoid it. Acknowledge in each of those domains you have to make a choice, and then make a choice that is in alignment with your value system. Choose a hard that you believe if you get through, you will leave this world a better place. You will be proud of yourself. You will look back and say, I had a purpose. I did something that mattered. Team, the fact that we're forced in to choosing hard is a really good thing, because if we make the right choice, it is exactly going through that transforms you and those around you into something better. The worst life in the world, and this speaks to what I was saying earlier, is the ones where people get to dodge the hard. It is a bland life. It tends to lack purpose, where you never have to fight to find out what you're capable of. You don't want that life. You want a life where you have to choose hard, but then you want to make the right choice when it comes to that. There's nothing in my life that I am proud of that I didn't have to fight for. Nothing that I'm grateful for that wasn't hard earned. Nothing. So be glad you have to choose hard, and then choose the right kind of hard, the one that matters to you. Thanks for being here, team. Happy Leadership Thursday. Go get it. Choose the right kind of hard.